As an 8th grade student, one of my most prevalent options for high school was Verbum Day. My older brother attended Verb, and two of my older cousins did too. I was on campus frequently to watch my older brother play and practice on the basketball team. Because I was on campus so often, I knew the basketball coach, the athletic director, who later became admissions director, a couple teachers, Big Chris, and many students. Many of them welcomed me into the Verbum Day community. I was very reluctant to go to Verbum Day. Like many 8th grade boys, I had no desire to attend an all-boys school. At the age of 14, I had 2 points of focus: basketball and girls. Unfortunately, Verbum Day did not have either one of those. I tried very hard to go to schools that were not Verb. However, due to the distance, finance, or availability, I was not able to go to any other school. My mental state going into high school had nothing to do with my intellectual growth. Although my other options had fallen short, I was left between Jordan High School and Verbum Day. How many students do you think deny the call to adventure that is receiving a Verbum Day education?
The call to adventure that is receiving a Verbum Day education? Maybe about 30 or 40%.
Why do you say that number?
Because if you look at attrition, so you have 100 freshmen that start, and you typically end up with about 60 seniors. So maybe it's not something that's always the student's decision. It could be the parent's decision, but either way, they are not able to pursue what could be available to them because they no longer attend.
How many students do you think deny the call to adventure that is receiving a Verbum Day education?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Unfortunately, quite a few. We have a lot of turnover here. I don't have exact numbers or anything, but we do have a lot of turnover here. So people think they can do Verbum Day, and they think they understand what it means to want to go to college. And when they get here, they find that it's not what they thought, and it's not necessarily what they want, or they don't want to have to do the work here to get it. And so because of that, we do have, like I said, a lot of turnover and students that leave and go into other schools. And some of them do just fine there. They do even better. And so maybe this just wasn't the fit for them. Maybe our structure was too much for them, and they need a place where they can kind of be a little more, freestyle and just kind of do their own thing versus all the structure that we have here. Versus others are kind of on the same path. But, you definitely have to be open to what we have to offer here, and you have to be willing to be part of the adventure. You have to want the adventure.
How many students do you think deny the call to adventure that is receiving a Verbum Day education?
I feel like the number is fairly high. I feel like it makes the hero in Verbum Day stand out because I think the call is similar to our life journey, the road we take, and how there are opportunities to become who you should be, but a lot of people they run from it. I think that chaos has taught them to run from their true selves. I just read a quote that's interesting. It said, "Hell on earth is on your last day running into the person you could have become."
Middle school, 2011. This was my entire world. Everything I knew came from this place, and it was all come to an end in a couple of weeks. The thought of a new beginning frightened my 14-year-old soul. See, I wasn't the type of kid who loved to get out of his comfort zone. Hell, I don't think any kid does at the age of 14. But what did comfort me was knowing that I had some kids from my middle school attending the same high school as me. So I wasn't exactly going through it on my own. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't want to grow up. The idea of being a grown-up still frightens me to this day, but not as much as it did when I was 14. 2011. A number, another summer. But not to me. This is the summer of my high school program, SOAR. SOAR is a summer program for all incoming freshmen and transfers to get a taste of what the high school had to offer. So it was more like a summer orientation. The biggest waste of time of my life. Or at least that's what I told myself. The SOAR program forced me out of my comfort zone, which I appreciate now as I'm reflecting back on it. The SOAR program called for me to make the transition from middle school to high school, but I didn't want to.
What point do you think Bourbon Day students cross the threshold into high school?
I think sadly, the threshold shows up a little later than they've started. So it's almost like watching your favorite video with a lag. You have students show up and they're kind of going through the motions, and they look at other students and they think that they're doing what the students do, but then the intervention piece comes in, and so they find themselves in front of people on campus who take on the responsibility of dealing with deficits being shown, and your grades aren't what it is. So the threshold becomes this intervention that they've never seen before, and now someone's finally holding them accountable, but now they're so far behind that it becomes a little more than they can hold.
Do you think that SOAR can be a representation of the crossing of the threshold?
I think it's supposed to be. I think that's the idea. Realistically, is it? Maybe for some, but when I get the ninth graders in my office playing video games and talking about Pokemon and who can beat who, Superman versus Batman, I don't necessarily see it that way.
Where do you think Keith crossed his threshold into high school?
I think the threshold for Keith was actually at the end of the freshman year. I think that we pushed through the freshman year, and I tell him all the time, it's tough when you come in and you've already read enough and have enough behind you to feel strong amongst your peers, but don't match that with your output. And so what you do on paper is a record of your journey. It's like any other recorded message. Intelligence is strong, it's powerful, but if there's no record of it, it's hard to show it. And so then when those two meet up and you realize that people don't believe you when you are trying to explain how actually intelligent you are because there's no record, it becomes heavy, and it's a thing. And so it led to a turn for him.
When do you think I crossed my threshold into high school?
I think, interestingly enough, your threshold happened before you got here. I think that you were in the basketball court and in the other areas of the school hearing things and picking up real authentic examples of what your future could be. Like you saw both. You saw Chris Lewis, you saw other people, you saw people, and they showed you what your journey could be. And so I think your threshold happened a lot quicker. I used to see you bouncing a ball, and I wondered if that was a nervous thing, and I would see you joke and laugh with the older guys, but there was I'm ready here, I'm ready to play too. But it was heavy for being 11, 12, 13 or something, trying to play with these older guys.
Although I had established myself as a good student athlete on the high school level, crossing the threshold into high school was not a complete separation from the world I knew before. Darius, my older brother, went away to college, requiring me to develop an independence I did not have. I felt a sense of loneliness I never felt before. I took on leadership roles in both athletics and academics, being the captain of the varsity basketball and track and field teams, a lead ambassador, while maintaining the high GPA in my grade created a stressful environment. Reading Siddhartha, a novel by Hermann Hesse, caused me to reflect on life. It made me see my attitude towards certain aspects of my life was not the best approach. Parties, hanging out with my friends, and days at the amusement parks became mundane. I read books and watched documentaries about the Renaissance period, which sparked a drive to better myself, but it also made me realize just how unimportant I was in the grand scheme of life. My past, overly confident self began to retreat to a more insecure boy. On top of everything, I still faced financial struggle and malnourishment. This is the lowest I've ever felt in my entire life. I knew the time for a metamorphosis had come.
I was so focused on not caring in high school, I ended up freshman year with a GPA of 1.7, thus making me have to repeat Algebra 1 all over again. This was the lowest point of my academic career.
Can you recall a time in which Keith was in the belly of the well?
I think my knee-jerk reaction is Keith still looking for that moment. But there have been moments where he's made an incredible turn and effort in what he puts out, and at least kind of learning how to navigate Bourbon Day. But obviously, if I'm saying what I said with the knee-jerk piece, there's still something that needs to happen for him to really turn that corner and really show up as he really is. I'm still looking for the true him. You know, we've had a ton of conversations, but I can't really pinpoint who he is yet, so I'm waiting for that. But I think it's going to be pretty powerful when it happens. I just hope he can handle it. Yeah, I think Nick's belly of the well moment, per se, was when he began to see the given leadership role, when he realized that not only did he have everyone's attention from words, but from actions. And so it was a moment that I think led him to really look internally, think about what he feels, read some things, and encounter some things and really take it in. And so I want to say mid to late sophomore year, because sophomore year was rough in terms of all 4 years. And so mid to end of sophomore year, Nick went through a powerful change, but he had to really fight against it in order to really accept it. I think, in a way, both Nick and Keith have seen it. I don't know if they've received it. I feel like they both see what could be, and that's big comparatively. Not even comparatively to our community, not even comparatively to the people within 5 miles of Verbum Dei, but in general, to be able to see what could be, like to have a thing in your mind and it be actually tangible and pragmatic, like that could happen. That's huge. So I want to say in that regard, they've seen it. I don't know if it's happened.